Okay, in order to get the face of that wave to be smooth, we've got to switch up our brushes. So I have 3 different kinds of brushes that I'd like to show you. These are watercolor brushes, and for the longest time I was saving them, but I know alcohol ink is where I'm going to live, so I'm going to go ahead and use them to paint with inks. So the first one is a spotter brush. This is a number 5. This one is a black velvet. It's a fake squirrel, and this is also black velvet, but this one's a 10, so it's much bigger. They're both round, but you can kind of see what the size is. So when you're using a brush and you want to get a bunch of color in there loaded into the brush, it's kind of similar to watercolor. You don't want to start out with a dry brush because all it does is just soak up the ink. So I'm putting some blending solution in my cup and taking the spotter brush. So just so you can see, even with no color, or whatever was left on the brush, it makes a pretty smooth area. I'm going to take a little bit of my JG7 and when you put the brush in there, it's going to absorb a bunch of the ink, but not as much as if it was dry. So this is the spotter, and I'm just going back and forth, and as it dries, it gives a pretty smooth area. If you want it smoother, you can come back in with your blending solution. Well, look, as it dries, that's really nice. But if you come back in with your blending solution, put some more on there, you see what the alcohol does. So you get some lines, which is okay, but you can get a really smooth surface. So that's the spotter. The next one I'm going to use is this faux squirrel that's round and it's smaller. Again, let's just put it in the blending solution. So it looks up cleaned up, very similar. When I put it into the ink, it absorbs a whole lot more. So now my brush is really loaded. Wow, okay. And the reason there's so much in there is because I put it in the blending solution first. I have a tendency to want to blow on it. You don't need to do that, but you could go ahead and tilt it a little bit if you wanted an effect. So now here where there's less blending solution, just going back and forth, it's making a pretty solid area. Now I know the next brush is really going to suck up a lot, so I'm going to put some more GJ7 in here. Clean that with the blending solution. So what happened is when I put it in here, this brush has got so many hairs it sucked up everything. So here's what it looks like. Just with mostly blending solution, a little bit of color. So put it in here. Depending on how much blending solution is still loaded into the brush, will dictate how much ink you're going to get out of there. So it's got a really neat watery look into it. So that is the large brush. It's really how much do you want in there. So did the spotter or the fake squirrel make much difference? Not really, it's just the spotter smaller, so there's more stripes in there.